Lankester Botanical Gardens outside of Cartago, Costa Rica is a 27-acre botanic garden and the premier place to see orchids native to the country and surrounding Latin America. However, what many people may not realize is that behind the public-facing garden are research facilities and greenhouses, which is where a lot of work revolving around cataloging, growing, and maintaining tens of thousands of orchids takes place. Jorge will take us through the extensive greenhouses, including where they are breeding and studying more disease-resistant productive vanilla orchid varieties, while Diego gives us a sneak peek into the state-of-the-art research facilities where they do tissue culture, DNA analysis, and advanced orchid photography.
I started to work here. The garden was just 15 years old, and it was mainly a nice place to see orchids, but without landscape development. No research activities, no educational activities, just a nice place to visit.
We were even here 7 years ago, and it's changed so much within that
span of time. Yes, it's changing really fast.
Yes. So this is crazy. You have so many orchids in one little place.
The development was based on the strategy to transform a nice garden into a research facility for the University of Costa Rica. So we developed a strategy to do research at the garden. The starting point was to document all the collections and to bring to the country all the documentation that was available, everything, pictures, descriptions, everything. We bring this information to the country and make it available to researchers. And then, as you can see, the country is so rich in orchids.
Yeah. This looks like all the same species,
the same species. Okay. And this is the really interesting thing. If you have different collections of what is supposed to be the same species, you can start to see differences.
Differences, like this is a smaller leaf, this one's broader, this one's thinner.
Exactly.
And now, being a research facility, I would imagine that you have some aspects of conservation as well. Do you maintain, like a lot of times botanic gardens will maintain 3 of a certain species or whatever. Is that something similar that you do?
Is the strategy,
okay.
Exactly. Try to maintain several individuals of what we guess is the same species. When we were able to build new greenhouses, we are trying to keep different conditions for different plants because, as you know, orchids grow from sea level to almost 3,000 meters above sea level. So the requirements are really, really different. So we nowadays have some greenhouses for species that comes from the Pacific, lowlands that require a lot of temperature, and also miniatures, like the ones you are going to see here, that require cold weather or temperature to grow. But this is the way we documented the plants. This is a single number for every specimen. This is the number of the collector. And for every plant, we keep data about specimens of herbarium, tissue, plants preserved in liquids, pictures, DNA samples, drawings for papers, pollinarium, which is the structure that insects and other animals bring from one flower to other. And the final is the
laminated herbarium. Okay.
Exactly.
And is the goal to get then all of these checkboxed on every specimen, or no? Okay.
No, just for certain individuals, but mainly the ones that are or were described as new species.
I see. Okay.
This is the material that comes from the lab. Those are tissue culture orchids. Most of them comes from seeds, but we also propagate the plants from tissue culture when we need to rescue a particular plant. We have not been able to propagate by seeds.
Right. And one of my questions to Diego taking this from tissue culture then to put it into something like this, there's a challenge in that too.
It's a challenge because in these flasks, they have everything: nutrients, moisture, water. Critical step is to take out the plants outside the flask, bring the conditions to the seedlings not to dehydrate. That's the most important condition. In order to do that, we use these chambers to acclimatize the plants.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so you have the humidity chambers.
Yes, we control basically the humidity.
How do you deal with all of a sudden now they're going to be introduced to like fungus from the outside world and everything? Do you have to give them in like a fungicide?
Yes, we need to apply chemicals.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a critical.
Yeah, they're temperamental, I guess, when you go from that point to that.
Yes. Because in these flasks, they are free from pests and disease. So it's critical when we...
Yeah, you almost have to help them with their immune system.
Yes.
At the end of the day, because you're in a flask that you don't have any, your immune system is protected, and so.
And even it's artificial light at the lab, so the leaves has not developed the cuticle, the wax, all the protection,
so they could get burned
stones.
very easily. Never thought.
So they have to deal with moisture and be accustomed to. Probably not the same amount of water in the air.
So how many different types of species do we have just in this one greenhouse?
Hard to say, but in our 9 or 10 greenhouses, we have about 900 orchid species, most of them from Costa Rica.
Got it.
And around 25,000 specimens.
And are these like Pleurothallus or which ones are these?
Pleurothallus.
Okay.
We have, I will say the largest collection is Pleurothallus. And this is...
is it also because Pleurothallus is also just a more dominant orchid within the orchid family?
Exactly. And probably less studied than other genus that are more prominent or...
Right. Now, I was just at another orchid facility and they were sharing that a lot of Pleurothallus has been reclassified.
Yes, but I'm not an expert.
Yeah, okay. You're like, I just take care of them.
Yes,
I don't know.
Exactly. There are some really bizarre plants. For instance, look at this.
Well, this one looks like it's dehydrated.
Exactly, but it's not.
It just looks that way.
Exactly.
Yeah, because typically when a plant would curl like its leaves, it's protecting for water.
From water, and in this case, probably protecting from direct sunlight.
It's direct sunlight.
It's not exposed.
Right, because it's going up vertically.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if it wanted sunlight, then it would track the sun a bit better. And it's succulent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And looks like...
it's got powder on it.
But for instance, Gerson tried to avoid the use of chemicals, so he watered the plant with a small... Like this.
Like a toothbrush.
This is the reason, with a brush. And biodiversity is amazing, really amazing. We have here in our collection what is considered to be the tiniest orchid species.
These are just so...
You see?
It's almost impossible to see the little flowers. What do you think pollinates that? Little gnat or...
Exactly.
Yeah? That is pretty cool.
You see? The fruit, even the fruit.
Right.
Just imagine the size of the seeds.
Oh, Jorge, he has this other thing.
Esa es la más pequeñita.
Oh my goodness.
It's considered the tiniest of the world.
Look at that. How would you ever see that when you're walking in the forest?
He's an expert collecting plants.
Unbelievable.
For most of the species, we don't know the pollinator. So just imagine the amount of research we have to carry out in the future.
Yeah.
We don't know the pollinators.
I mean, look at this, Sander. It's unreal.
And some are really, really, really showy.
Yeah.
Look at the color. Isn't it beautiful?
Now, what are these little things coming off to the side? Like you see the flower here, but what's...
The the structures where the flowers were attached before, because it keeps blooming
Oh,
continuously.
I see. It comes down. Okay, so those are old flowers.
Exactly.
I see. Okay.
It will keep blooming. We also grow orchids that are not considered beauty. Those terrestrial orchids, for instance.
The terrestrials get a bad rap.
They are hard to find in nature because they develop the leaves and the stems only during the rainy season. After that, it keeps...
It's just leaves and you can't find the
Exactly.
flowers.
Just
So here's an
You see?
example.
Exactly.
Is that an orchid?
This is beautiful.
Is that an orchid?
It's an orchid.
It's an orchid?
Just imagine the horticultural potential of this plant. Isn't it beautiful?
It's not an orchid, is
It's
it?
an
It
orchid.
is. Look
It's
at
an
the
orchid.
leaves are an orchid, yeah. But the flower looks nothing like an orchid. Is it just because it's really closed up?
Well, these are leaves, and the flower is just a
I
white
see.
one.
So these are kind of like bracts.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Stenorhynchus.
Stenorhynchos
Glycostinii.
Unbelievable. This one looks like it's going to be a beauty too.
Is going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
This one, yeah. And there are also some aquatic orchids, or orchids that can thrive in water. You see?
Well, that is unreal.
Avenaria,
Avenaria. And native to Costa Rica.
native to Costa Rica.
Look at this one with the spots on the sleeves. Because typically when you see like maybe a Paphiopedilum or something, it would have like those types of spots.
And it's interesting because in horticulture, people are always looking for different patterns of the leaves. And this is beautiful.
It's beautiful, yeah.
It's like a jewel.
Look at this green one. It's pure green. So is this something that would normally be pollinated at night, or Epidendrum triolatum? Adam did this one. Look,
Yes.
there's his name.
He was the
On that one.
collector.
Yeah, he was the collector of that
He
one.
was the collector. He's
Yeah.
one of the experts in this family. This is the 9,500 plant he has collected.
Wow. He said he started here when he was like 15.
15
Yeah.
years old. Amazing. And I would like to show you this is devoted only for miniature orchids.
What classifies a miniature orchid?
No, this is not a term. It's the size.
Because some of these look a little larger than miniature in my book.
But as you can see, it's
Wow,
plenty,
it's
plenty of
Wall
miniature.
after wall of mosquitoes. Cameraman's getting attacked by mosquitoes.
Let's see. Isn't it beautiful?
Wow, look at that. Really beautiful burgundy color too. I mean, do you have to come in here every day and see what's blooming? Because even this, look at, right behind you, just a string of jewels.
This is probably the main advantage of having a research facility and a botanical garden together, because botanists can bring their plants. We try to provide the conditions for these plants to bloom, but sometimes it takes months or years, but they are sure they are going to bloom sooner or later. And some flower lasts few days or few hours, so they are here in the center to study the plants when they are bloom.
What patience you have to have, because a lot of times people do need that flower in order to be able to study it and classify it. Now this one looks like similar to the terrestrial orchid that you shared, but is this something that would grow terrestrially?
Yes, most of the epiphytic orchids have pseudobulbs.
Oh, pseudobulbs to keep them
the moist,
yeah.
And nutrients. And this one probably lose their leaves during the dry season.
Because it's really thin. Look at how cute. Those little ones.
Almost dark.
Yeah, very dark, like a brownish red.
Look at this.
That looks almost like a
This is
ludicea
beauty.
discolor, almost, in a way, right? Or some type of jewel
You are
orchid.
familiar with the orchids.
Somewhat, not, I mean, look at how many orchids are out there. How can one be familiar with so many?
Cyclopogon.
Cyclopogon, though, that's a different one for me.
Yeah.
But-
Again, think on the potential of this.
I know, exactly.
It's beautiful.
Because most of the time orchids aren't blooming, like you said, so people do look for interesting leaves and leaf shape.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. People love it, and they love pink and like the silver and everything. Well, next time when I come back, it shouldn't just be research botanical facility. You should also have a production facility so that you could introduce some interesting species to people so they could take them home. A commercial element. You know, you could fund your research that way. Oh, that's delicate.
Ah, that's beautiful, orange.
And how about this one where it almost has like a little
Pendant.
Yeah, pendant. You said these are all miniatures, but do you try to organize them by genus or
Not
species?
necessarily.
Okay.
No, they are organized mainly about taking into consideration the requirements of humidity, light, shade.
So how would you go and find?
Once they are happy in one particular spot, we leave the plant.
Yeah, so you leave it there, but how would somebody says, I'm going to study this plant. How do you know that this plant is in this row? Like in this greenhouse, you know what I mean?
Yeah. How to find a
Plant
particular plant in this huge collection.
It's insane.
Yes, that's true. Well, they usually ask the growers where they place the particular plant, but at certain extent, there's some logical about it.
Okay. You just have to have good memory.
Yes, that's true.
Here's another one, and we just saw some of these. We heard that these are more called cactus orchids because they have this, almost like this Schlumbergera or jungle-like cactus
This is
or ripsalis type of look.
Lockhardtia. But if you are not familiar with orchids, I bet some people will say that this is a fern.
Yeah, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. And then all the way back here, you've just stuffed as many as you possibly can. Oh, we have some anthuriums,
Behind you,
though.
there's a new, beautiful acineta.
Oh, and so these are not orchids. These are
the sneriads and aroids. But there are some orchids also. For instance, this one is one of the most difficult orchids to grow, at least here in Costa Rica.
And why is that? It looks pretty substantial.
But it's the way they extend on the...
So it's almost like rhizomatous.
Exactly.
So it needs a lot of horizontal space. And look how grassy this one is. Scaphioglottis.
I think a lot of people fail to grow orchids because they are not aware the way they grow in nature.
That's what is beautiful about this facility, because you're so close to seeing them in the wild, and then you could actually recreate it here.
And that's why it is important that also our growers go to the field with the botanists to see the plant growing in the field.
And look at this little one, Sonder. It's like a powder puff.
Isn't it amazing that with almost 30,000 species, all of them share the same flower structure?
one. It has like a deep red leaf. I don't know if that's sun-stressed, but both of these have this cherry leaf.
Yeah. This is another example of. This is not an usual color, you see? Treboria, I guess. No, Quejeliela. Quejeliela. So you can imagine when they found this plant, it's easy to spot and recognize in branches or.
And this one over
growing on the
here
trees.
has like a red midvein, you know, so. And this one feels a bit more like the one that we just saw with the cat, but then it has leaves coming off the side.
Dickia.
Dickia.
We are going to visit the greenhouse for a terrestrial orchid in the genus Sobralia. We know this genus or this species here in Costa Rica as Flor de un Día because the flowers usually last one day.
Okay. And they actually have really beautiful flowers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's common to see this plant in
Landslides, the first movers.
Exactly.
Interesting. I never thought about Sobralias as pioneer plants.
Some of these species really are pioneers species.
And they're terrestrial, so they would be propagating on the ground?
Actually are epiphytic, but they can live also as terrestrial.
Because I've seen some of the Sobralias that have been planted and they put them in pots, or they'll, you know, kind of landscape with them, I guess.
As long as the soil allows the water to drain, they are happy. We call these protected environments for growing plants because they are not true greenhouses in the sense that you can control all the variables. But for instance, this one comes from dry places of the country. As you can see, they are more succulent, do not require too much watering, just once a week. High temperature, otherwise they will not bloom because you need to induce the flowering. So they come from dry
Look at
areas
this.
of the country. Yeah, it's
I think when a lot of
succulent.
people think Costa Rica, they don't necessarily always think dry, but you have so many different ecotones here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In some areas of the Pacific lowland in the coast, you can find cactus. But if you move to wet areas of the country, you will find also cactus, but they are epiphytic cactus.
Right, yeah.
Like this
Like
one.
that one, which looks like it was just about to bloom, or...
You see, no spines. Epiphytic cactus. This, as I mentioned, comes from really dry seasons. This one, for instance, is, I guess, Chomburkia. The pseudobulb is colonized by ants.
So it's ants that live in here and then protect the plant. Yeah. Almost like an ant plant, like Myrmecodia or whatnot.
The next greenhouse housed their vanilla plants, and Jorge blew my mind about the real origin of our vanilla and all the different species in the vanilla genus.
And here we have our vanilla collection.
Okay. Now you have a vanilla collection. Is this for production? Like, are you trying to get vanilla for economic production, or why are you studying vanilla plants?
Alan started with this collection because his interest in the taxonomy and the ecology of the genus.
Okay. So is it just, it's not just vanilla planifolia, or?
No.
Okay, it's
no.
lots of different types of vanilla.
In Costa Rica, we have 14 or 13 vanilla species.
Really?
Of these species, about 8 or 9 produce flowers, aromatic flowers and fruits. So they are related, more related to Vainilla planifolia.
So can you eat?
And they have the potential.
They have the potential.
Exactly.
Look at you. I know you're like, oh, the potential. Look at the potential of this commercial valuable plant. Yeah, I see it.
For breeding or to use them as they are a species. I mean, to broad the spectrum of vanilla
I guess
beans.
I never really thought about it, because when we think of vanilla, we think that it originated in Madagascar, right?
No.
No? And there's just so many different types.
The genus Vanilla is pantropical. I mean, you can find vanilla species in the neotropics and in the paleotropics. Okay. The ones that produce aromatic fruits and flowers are only found in the neotropics. And the Vanilla planifolia grow naturally from Mexico to Costa Rica.
Oh, interesting.
There were the Aztecs, and before that, the Totonecas, who started using vanilla fruits for producing chocolate.
So then would you have the native pollinators here then? You do. You must have the native pollinators that pollinate the vanilla.
Yes, but it's not efficient enough for sustained production.
I see.
Even in Mexico, they have to hand pollinate the flowers. And probably 200 years ago, the Europeans moved vanilla to their colonies in the Indian Ocean. So Madagascar and Reunion Island turned into the main producers. One day discovered the way to artificially pollinate the flowers.
See, that's what I associate with vanilla. It was always Madagascar, but when we should have been associating it with here.
Yes, Madagascar probably produced half of the amount of the vanilla.
So do you think where vanilla really developed was in Mexico or the Mexico area, Mexico, Costa Rica, that's where it diversified? Its center of diversity?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
You better ask Adam.
Adam,
but,
yes, that's his forte.
Because what I know is it is an old subtribe or genus. So probably it started to diversify a lot of time ago. Once we have this beautiful collection, used, as I mentioned, mainly for systematics and ecology studies, it was natural to focus also in production. So we are also working with a hybrid that is being grown in Costa Rica since 20 years ago.
So do you produce it for like chocolate production, or what do you
No,
use it for?
this is in Costa Rica, you mean?
Yeah.
I guess most is exported.
Okay.
Because it's really expensive. It's a commodity.
It's the second most expensive spice, right?
Exactly.
So next to saffron.
I have heard prices, crazy prices, such as $5 for one bean.
One pod,
One pod. But as I mentioned, this is a hybrid that has been cultivated in Costa Rica during the last probably 20 years. We still are not completely sure about the parents. It's most probably Vainilla planifolia crossed with Vainilla pompona, which is also aromatic.
Can you do DNA analysis on it? And just
that is what we are doing.
Right, okay.
Now. And all these bench are species that has been tissue culture propagated in our lab.
Is there any downside to tissue culture propagation? Like, can you tell a tissue culture plant once it's mature from a non-tissue culture plant?
They are not different. Probably the downside will be that once you have a plantation, all the plants are the same if you propagate it clonally.
Right, but you don't always have to propagate it clonally to tissue culture. No. You could do it by the seed.
By the seeds.
Yeah.
But the seed has the advantage that you can obtain probably new individuals with superior characteristics. But probably most of the population you're going to obtain are not as good as the parent.
Right, because you want to select for that parent in that case, yeah. And these look more vigorous, this one right here.
They are older and different species. For instance, this one is Vainilla dressleri and is in bloom nowadays.
Oh, it is, look at that.
Yeah, it's a lot of flowers. And is also aromatic.
Now, I would imagine, and maybe they have horticultural value here in Costa Rica, but I would imagine the only thing I've ever seen on the commercial market is Vanilla planifolia.
That's true.
Whatever I see in the botanic gardens is Vanilla planifolia. Like, these have horticultural value, I would imagine. I never see them anywhere. This is the first time I'm seeing them.
Okay, I'm going to show you some beautiful plants also. Well, this one is, I guess it's planifolia. Yes, this one is planifolia.
Okay.
But we also have these beauties.
I mean, look at how, is this planifolia too? This is like a strappy leaf.
Yeah,
Very strapped.
this one is pompona, and you
Wow.
can tell the difference.
Yeah, and look at how thick.
And this one is small. You can see here. Oh, come on here. This is pompona.
Wow. It's
More
drapey.
vigorous.
Yeah, vigorous.
Resistant against the most common disease in Vanilla planifolia.
So you could breed it for disease resistance with planifolia like you did and try to
That's the
get a very
hybrid.
tasty.
That's the hybrid, exactly.
But then you'd have to taste every single pod to see which one
Yes,
tastes the
but
best.
in the case of the hybrid,
Yeah.
the beans are larger, so they are more productive. The chemical compounds resemble a lot the ones of planifolia because the amount of vanillin is similar or higher than planifolia. And there are other chemical compounds that gives or provides the beans notes different
I wonder if
that make
like,
it attractive.
so let's say you have a planifolia and then what's the genus of this one again? Species?
This one is pompona.
Pompona.
Vainilla
Okay.
pompona.
So you have pompona and you have planifolia, and then you have that, it's hybridized. Then can you take that and then back cross it with another planifolia?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that you could get even different, more characteristics.
That's what we are trying to figure out about this
okay.
hybrid.
All right, okay, we're on the same wavelength.
Exactly.
Trying to get the best
So-
vanilla there.
If I mentioned that there are, just in Costa Rica, 8 different species that also produce aromatic flowers, and in the continent there are probably 40 more, you can imagine the potential. I think we are just discovering the potential of vanilla.
Right. You need like a legion of 50 grad students just to contribute to that information.
Well, there's an interest in the other countries
Right.
how to use this biodiversity.
Well, thank you for introducing me to that because that's the first time I'm seeing something other than planifolia.
No, this one.
It's not quite open yet.
No.
Yeah.
Or probably it was open yesterday.
And now it's closing and will
early
become a
early
pod.
this morning. That this is the point with vanilla. They must be pollinated early in the morning because after the midday or in the afternoon they are not
Available.
available.
Yeah.
And they must be hand pollinated. And finally, we are going to visit the greenhouse with the Sobralias.
That's pretty.
It's so pretty. And again, this genus has a lot of horticultural potential because even though they bloom once or the flower lasts just one day, they probably keep blooming.
It's consecutive. It's not simultaneous.
Consecutive.
Yeah.
And there are few species whose flowers last 2 or 3 days.
So this is another great example. And I think I see another one over here, just starting to fade. Light scent. Yeah, they grow pretty tall, huh?
Yep.
Now, would people normally cut these back, or do they just let them grow?
No, let
okay.
them grow. Yeah.
Okay. Is this also a Sobralia? What is this?
No, this is
Looks like wheat.
a sister genus called Elianthus.
Elianthus, okay.
Elianthus. And we also have these giant Sobralias that I guess they are going to move to another genus, you see?
Oh, are you...
4 or 5 meters tall.
Is Lancaster moving them to another
No,
genus?
I'm not sure about
Yeah.
this, but I heard that, well, it's Sobralia, but
But you think that they're on the cusp of moving genetically. They are massive, huh? It really, going from those little micro propagations to something quite large. And we have some
Sobralia.
aroids. I think probably A philodendron.
This is for display.
Yeah.
This one, for instance, are Sobralias from
So
tissue
these are
culture.
the hybrids.
This is a hybrid.
Okay, so people are experimenting. To see,
We are experimenting.
Yeah. And do you think you're going to bring them out to commercial or just display them here?
I guess we're trying to demonstrate the potential of this for breeding because working in a public institution sometimes is not an easy task to be involved with the commercial sector.
You know what happens?
But probably we can provide the plants to particular growers.
To grow, yeah. You need Adam to get his Dutch connections over because you know all those Dutch people, they like their plants.
That's true.
They'll start breeding them. Well, you have your hands full here, I would have to say. But you do a phenomenal job. This is fantastic to see. Thank you for giving us a little behind the scenes because we wouldn't normally get the chance to see this.
That's true.
We only see the displays. So absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much
and
for your
I hope you have many,
visit.
many more years here.
Okay, thank you very much.
After perusing the greenhouses, Diego took us through the research facilities, which serve as one of the premier labs studying and documenting Latin American orchids.
So here, this is the research building. This is the place where we mostly do the research. Our research has like two components. One is in the field, of course, because all the natural resources are there. So we mostly go for the field, and then we bring the material or the plants for cultivation. When the orchids are well established and they are in bloom, we start to study them.
And then how many researchers do you have working in this facility?
We have 7 researchers.
7? Okay.
Yes.
I feel like you'd have more.
No, we are still few people.
Yeah.
We have also several students because one advantage is that we belong to the University of Costa Rica, and we have strong relationships with the School of Biology and the School of Agronomy. So many students come here to develop projects or to.
Can we take a peek and see what they're doing? That would be amazing.
The labs are downstairs.
And you have all your own tissue culture labs then too?
This is tissue culture.
Okay.
You know that orchid seeds cannot germinate by themselves, so they need help. In nature, they start growing because they associate with specific fungi. But in the lab, you can provide the nutrients, but everything has to be clean.
My question is with tissue culture, and especially because you could go home with some tissue culture orchids yourself. What's the best way of like transferring them eventually from the tissue culture to a different medium altogether? Is there a specific?
It is a difficult process because when they are inside the flask, they are a way of fungi and bacteria. When you take them out, then they are exposed to diseases or fungi, bacteria. So you need to keep them clean. You need to wash the roots and everything and put on a specific media. Could be sphagnum. And you should provide some humidity and nutrients so they can
start to
keep
establish,
growing.
yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
But this is some of the most difficult processes, and then you always lose some plants. We have several orchids that are endangered, so they have very few, or we know very few individuals in nature. So we try to grow them here to propagate and to have a stock of rare plants or endemic plants. Other plants are from experiments. For example, I guess Alan talked about vanilla. There are experiments. You can germinate any orchid here and make it. We have this lab. And here we investigate mostly anything related to the anatomy and the chemical composition of tissues.
I see.
For example, mostly with the pollination studies that we want to research, for example, which rewards are offering the orchids, or if they are not offering rewards. Here, we use these machines to test the quality of the DNA. And this is the UV light, and also the electrophoresis to check the integrity of the DNA structure. And the basic process is done here. That's the DNA bank. Hola, Andrea.
Hola, ¿cómo
¿Cómo están? Francisco, ¿todo bien?
Hola.
They are working here in the DNA extraction, and here is the lab where we extract DNA. And DNA is a basic process. After you extract DNA, you need to check the quality and the quantity of DNA, and if it is good, you can send the samples abroad for sequencing.
How do you check the quality of the DNA?
Quality is with spectrophotometer.
Oh, a spectrophotometer,
Then you have
okay.
the quantity, and the integrity is in the electrophoresis gel.
And then,
Basically, you want DNA that is not really fragmented. But because we extract mostly from living plants, the quality of DNA is
pretty
very
high
good.
because some people will do the DNA from like a pressed
Herbarium,
specimen
yeah,
or
exactly.
herbarium or something that's in a pickle jar or something like that.
So that's tricky.
Yeah.
Or sometimes there is a fossil or a specimen from 200 years ago. And so the DNA is quite fragmented, so you need to do other protocols to get
People
this.
probably love then your DNA because they're like, oh wow, it's like just high quality.
Yeah. But here you are able to extract DNA. This is what we mostly do here.
In addition to their tissue culture lab and DNA work, the facility also houses an extensive library on orchids and a facility to do botanical photography.
We receive like more or less 5,000 volumes and books from an orchidologist.
So it's like a library.
It's a library
Yeah.
now, and they are cataloging this. Buenos días.
Buenos
Están
dias.
filmando. Yeah, these books were Rudolf Jenny had apparently the biggest orchid library in private hands in the world.
Wow.
And he was in Switzerland, and he had a lot of money, so any book or anything that had orchids printed, he bought it. But before that, he wanted to take his library to Lancaster, so that's the reason that his family donated the library here. And there are books here that are not possible to
Buy anywhere else.
buy or get in Latin America. This is an example of what we are doing. The color plates we are doing here in the photography lab. What we do is to photograph the plant with the flowers.
Right.
And then the most important element to identify an orchid is the flower. So we always try to put it in the left upper corner of the plate.
And then you dissect
And then
it.
we dissect and try to portray the most important features.
I mean,
to
this is almost better. I mean, I know you use herbarium specimens for DNA, but like this is almost better than a herbarium specimen.
Yeah, I think it's a compliment. I wouldn't say that it's better because perhaps you say, okay, I want to see in the backside of this. So you cannot do that.
Yeah.
So if you go to the herbarium specimen, you can check that. And then you have the colors. Also, we put the flowers into alcohol, and we have a collection of 15,000 samples.
And they preserve pretty well in
preserving
alcohol.
in
Yeah,
alcohol.
even
And
some of
then
the colors.
dried specimens, we send them to the university because we don't have a herbarium of dried specimens, because this requires more investment and you have to take care of them. And the university already have this facility in the School of Biology, so we try to send the samples there. But the samples are stored here, about 15,000 flowers into alcohol. And then these color plates are a complement, because then you can see the colors or the dissections.
Yeah, or even how the growth structure, what you would see in the wild.
And our goal is to illustrate all the orchid species of Costa Rica. The thing is that we have probably more than 2,000. We already have 1,700 species already recorded.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
But the number is increasing.
Every time you discover new species, you have to catch up.
And we more or less have like 800 illustrations of orchids, which is a lot. I think we are probably the first tropical country having such information, but we are far to complete this.
I don't know if you are this is your thought process, but this should just be a book. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if you,
That's the idea.
this would be great. You have all the plates, you have all the identification, you have all the information. And even if every page had a little QR code that you could get the more digital information from, I mean, it would be indispensable.
The idea is to do that. This is our dream. When I first came to the garden, it was about 20 or 25 years ago. And now we have half of the illustrations. So I don't know if when I retire I will see this, but at least we have a big base
Well,
for new generations.
This is fantastic. I mean, thank you so much for
No
sharing
problem.
these facilities with us.
If you're interested in doing a group botanical tour with us to Costa Rica or another country, fill out the survey in the pinned comment or description below the video. And we're planning on more trips down the line, and we'll let you know when they launch. You can also head over to our website at homesteadbrooklyn.com to sign up for the newsletter and check out our suite of online houseplant courses and other resources while you're there. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next video.